Hello and welcome to the 12 Months to Marathon podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams, episode 57, Why Sleep Matters. Now, quick one on this. Sleep's a very important thing to me, and it's something that I've focused on massively, really, in my own life since I changed and lost weight back in 2005. Now, I do have an in-depth sleep workshop over on my Plus podcast, which is $7 a month. And you get loads of access to stuff that I only give out to my coaching community. So there's an in-depth sleep workshop over there. The link's in the description if you want to do that. I'd appreciate it. It also helps support the show as well. What I'm going to be talking about is just some stuff on a headline level to help you out because... Quick disclaimer, I'm still in Poland. I'm coming back soon, and so there might be a bit of an echo in the background because of where I'm recording, and also because there's quite a few churches close to here. You might hear some bells, as somebody pointed out to me that they could hear church bells in the background. There's quite a large church close to here, and the windows are open because it's incredibly hot here in Poland, as it is, as I'm told, in the UK where I'm from originally. So, what's going on with me at the moment? Nothing's really changed. Great North Run on the 7th of September and then High Rocks at the end of October. Had some good training sessions over here. It has been hot. I don't go out until later here because of the way the day is set up, and it has been quite hot. But I've had some really, really good training sessions out here. I've done a lot of running. And I've enjoyed it. It's quite flat, like I said last time, so it's been good, and I'm going to be enjoying the Great North Run as a spectacle. I'm doing it for a very good charity, the Birmingham Children's Hospital in the UK, and then High Rocks is the main focus. So when I get back from here next week, as I record this, it's 10 weeks to High Rocks, and it's time to get in High Rock shape, which is a mixture of strength and also working on my VO2 max and lactate threshold primarily as two important things, so I don't gas out, as the expression goes, on certain parts of the event. So, sleep. So, it's 20 years since I started my own personal weight loss journey back in 2005, and sometimes people will say to me, what's the best thing about losing weight? And a lot of people get caught up with the aesthetics and what you can wear and how you feel and all that. For me, one of the most important things, which I always say, is you'll realise you're in control of a lot more things than you think. And I did a little bit on sleep on my coaching call that I do with all my clients last week, and I talked about sleep, but I do tend to go off on a bit of a rant about sleep because it's amazing how people don't do the basics and then will complain all day that they're tired, okay? And I'm talking the basics here, and there are some really, really basic things you can do to improve your sleep, and I believe it is the quickest way not only to improve your running performance, but also to improve your mental health as well. A lot of people out there say from a health point of view, if you identify sleep as the lead domino, it's going to knock down all the other things. So it's really, really important, and I do get quite passionate about it because it's a classic for people, you know, the old Simpsons expression, we've done nothing and we're all out of ideas. So, and when I say that, what I mean is that it's a very difficult thing to manage. Like I get comments sometimes on Instagram or social media from mothers and stuff, you know, new mothers, and that's a different conversation. That's a completely different conversation because that's needs must. What I'm talking about here is people who are able to manage the absolute basics of sleep and can really improve it without a lot of effort. It just requires changing the way you approach it from an attitude point of view. So not a lot of people talk about it really, which is interesting. When you look online, particularly nowadays with all the faddy stuff and all the stuff like Zone 2 and carbon plate trainers and all the other stuff you talk about, it doesn't really get mentioned. But actually, if you do this, I think it will knock over a lot of the other things when it comes to running, to be honest. And I'm going to call it your secret weapon. And I've seen that since I was here because I haven't got to run a particular early morning fitness group that I do while I'm here, of course, because I'm in Poland. And it means I can sleep a little bit more. And whilst my sleep's good anyway, just that extra little bit can make all the difference. So let's start with what sleep actually does. So it's not just designed to make you feel a bit better, and it's not just rest. There are some things that can happen during sleep that are important, specific to running. So from a body standpoint, a physical standpoint, first and foremost, your muscles will repair damage from training. So like when you train in any capacity and anything, your muscles will damage and repair themselves. That's how you adapt, yeah? So sleep's a big one for that. Immune system will strengthen while you're asleep. Your nervous system resets, and also your brain processes motor learning and stores movement patterns. And if you are tracking sleep from a mental health point of view, you want to be getting about an hour and 30, 90 minutes of REM sleep, because the REM sleep's the important thing, because that's the dream sleep. And that's when your brain goes into a place almost like a trance state, where you will go in sort of hypnotherapy and into the unconscious, because you can't, of course, control what you dream about, and that's an important way to do it. So sleep will make you a better runner. Now, sleep deprivation, on the other hand, is going to reduce time to exhaustion, so it's going to make you perform less. It's going to increase perceived effort. It's going to decrease glucose metabolism in the brain, which will affect your focus, and it will make running seem harder than it should. Okay. Now, we can all have bad days, we can all have bad things that go on, but I think that this can be managed over time. So on the whole, you can really improve your performance with sleep. Now, I talked about data last week about sleep, and it's an interesting one because, don't let your sleep score necessarily dictate how you feel, because you can feel good and whatever. So last night, as I record this, it was interesting because it didn't record me going to sleep for about an hour after I actually did. So I was like, well, so it knocked my data out. And I'll go listen to last week's podcast, episode 56, about data for more on that. But you've just got to be a little bit careful. You'll know when you're tired, and you'll know when you've not had sleep. But again, like I said last week, the data is a guide, and it will help you. Don't just treat it as like the be-all and end-all, though. Okay, you've got to check in with how your body actually feels. So how much sleep do we need? This is a really good question, actually. Now, there's many theories on this, and I think it comes down to individuals. Now, I've listened to podcasts and heard elite athletes talk about getting 9 to 10 hours a night, napping in the day. Now, that's not always practical for everybody, because what you got to bear in mind is if someone's an elite athlete or an athlete, it's their job. So they can nap during the day, they can sleep longer, because their job is to race and to perform. Whereas for the rest of us normal people who are really, let's call us recreational runners, because we all are really. We're not doing it unless you're doing it for a living, which I doubt you are if you're listening to this. Then realistically, you're not going to be able to get 10 hours of sleep a night and nap during the day. So the average is 7 to 9 hours. I think that your benchmark goal is 7 good hours. Now, if you listen to this podcast and you're a runner, I'm assuming you've got the sort of tech that will tell you the difference between actually being asleep and being awake. So if I think you get at least 7 hours of good sleep as an average across a normal, say, span of time, I think that's enough. I think if you're going for any sort of personal best in a race, then that's where you should be aiming to go for the longer sleep. Okay, but as an average, I would go 7 to 9 hours. 7 being the minimum. All right. I will say that my average on a normal week when I'm sort of in the UK and working and stuff like that is probably somewhere between 7:15 and 7.5, I would say. Yeah. So how do you know if you're not getting enough sleep? Well, I think there's some obvious stuff here. Obviously feeling groggy, crashing mid-afternoon, if you've got trouble focusing on your runs, if you're more irritable, or your rest, I've talked about this and I'll do a whole podcast on resting heart rate, or your resting heart rate spikes. So if you're noticing an increase in your resting heart rate, which I noticed when I was ill, that is an indication that you're not as rested as you could be. Okay. So that's a good one to look at. So look at your heart rate variability if you've got that data, and also your heart rate. So let's talk about how to improve your sleep then. This is where we go off on our rants. Now, I'm going to give you the cut down version here. So the first thing is rhythm and routine. Now, a lot of people out there say that a really good way to improve your mental health is to establish a strong routine. The problem, and I would say this maybe won't be a problem for the people listening to this, but I'll say it anyway, is often we see something as boring. Like, I couldn't care less what time I go to bed. Don't care, because I'm looking at how it impacts my performance and how I feel. So I couldn't care less. I wouldn't sit up and watch something on TV if I knew it was going to impact my overall performance. Does that make sense? Because I've got a focus in mind. Now, most of the people that listen to this have got some kind of running focus, so that for me is more important. And especially with nowadays, you can watch things on repeat, and and you can go back and watch things whenever you want, really. So trying to keep a solid regular bedtime and wake up time is really, really important. Caffeine. Now, I like caffeine. I don't need caffeine in the sense of it's not something that I have to wake me up. It's something I actually quite like the taste of. I do like coffee. Now, there is varying things on this, but about 10 to 15 years ago, I had a DNA test done that was relatively expensive, which worked out my caffeine tolerance, which worked out mine to be about 6 to 8 hours, which means that caffeine stays in my system for that long. Now, again, that's correlation, so we're not taking that as definite, but I heard it a few months ago, the 10-hour rule. So don't have caffeine at least 10 hours before bed, okay? If you need caffeine during the day consistently, then you are causing the problem that you're trying to fix, if that makes sense. Because my running joke with people, pun intended, is that, you know, they complain they're tired and they perhaps need to go to the doctors, yet they're having 14 cups of coffee a day and staying up on Instagram till 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's also, for you people in the UK particularly, there's also caffeine in tea. So people will have 3 cups of tea of an evening thinking it's just tea, it's not coffee, and then wondering why they can't sleep. So I think for most people, having no caffeine after the latest 1 p.m. and then going to decaf afterwards if you need to is a really easy and quick way to sort your sleep out. And the only reason why we wouldn't do that is habit. And if you're tired and you think you need caffeine in the afternoon, then you need to address that. Okay. The one that's closely linked to that. So I think the 2 big rocks, as it were, are caffeine, 1, digital detox, 2. Okay, so digital detox, which means basically you should probably shut down any phone or laptop 30 to 60 minutes before bed, at least 30. You shouldn't look at any news or social media at least 30 minutes before bed, because these are things that are designed to arouse you and designed to stimulate you, not help you to sleep. Okay, now I go off on a rant about this one because the amount of people who tell me they're busy, they're doing work stuff, they're not, they're scrolling. Everyone's default is scrolling. So if you're lying in bed scrolling, that's a problem. Not only for a blue light thing, which suppresses melatonin from your phone, but also because you are probably looking at stuff that's negative or making you feel bad. That's not useful, especially if your sleep's suffering because of that. Yeah. So cool, dark room, so as dark as possible and as cold as possible. If you can use blackout curtains or anything like that, brilliant, but as dark as possible and as cool as possible. And then set yourself some kind of winding down routine. So reading fiction, stretching, journaling, breath work, having a warm shower is a good one because your body cools down. Or a warm bath. Most people think cold would do that. No, if your body's cooling down, it's better to go to sleep, and there's some reason behind that which I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, so a warm shower or a warm bath will help you do that. But certainly doing something that is almost like dumping the day, so like writing down a journal of how you feel and allowing sort of unconscious feelings or anything negative to come out on paper is really going to be useful, I think, as well. So that's 4 really easy things. And to be honest, if most people did those 4 things, cut caffeine, detox, made sure they slept in dark and quiet, and then had some sort of winding down routine instead of looking at the phone, watching the news or scrolling, it will really, really help. So just to wrap up on this, sleep isn't a bonus. It's part of your training plan. If you are serious about achieving personal bests, taking your running to the next level or performing over time and helping your body to recover well, particularly cough, cough, uncomfortable as we age, then this is something that's really important. What I've noticed is, as I am nearly 50, is you can perform at a fantastic level still. I can perform at a really good level, beyond my wildest dreams of where I was at the age of 28 when I first started to change. But you need to recover better, and recovery is a big part of that process when you're getting a little bit older. So that's really, really important. Now, like I said, if you do want more in-depth guidance on sleep, I do a bit of a more detailed presentation stroke training on my Plus podcast. It's only $7 a month. Feel free to click the link in the description if you want that. As always with the podcast, I do appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or you want any help at all or support, don't forget to head on over to @12monthstomarathon on Instagram, and you can support me and message me over there. I've also got my free, yes it is free, running community over there. The link is in my bio for the over 35s. That's in school. If you don't like clicking on links, you can just search in SKOOL school for my over 35s running community. If you're new to the podcast and you're not subscribed yet, please feel free to subscribe. I do appreciate it. Please follow the podcast. Also, the star ratings and the reviews on whatever platform you get your podcast from are really helpful and really useful, and I do appreciate it. So that's episode 57, why sleep is important. Thank you very much for listening. As always, again, don't forget to hop on over for your daily content at 12 Months to Marathon. Thanks again, and I'll see you all very soon indeed.